real. But this is just the mock-up of a terror attack. Yet, the threat that terrorism poses remains a clear and present danger. That's the consensus among leaders in Southeast Asia as they acknowledge that the region has become a fertile ground for terrorism activities. It is now no longer a case of if, but when a strike is likely to happen. In the wake of recent terrorist attacks in Paris, Brussels, and closer to home, Jakarta, how prepared are we in dealing with such situations when confronted with it? Welcome to ASEAN Spotlight. In this episode, we examine how ASEAN has responded with stepped-up counter-terrorism efforts. We'll also take a look at the security measures Singapore has taken to get the country and its people ready to face possible attack. While the government says there is no specific intelligence of any imminent plot against Singapore, the country isn't taking any chances. Almost all cities are believed to be likely targets. Here in Southeast Asia, the Islamic State militant group, or ISIS, is the biggest threat. Analysts say the authorities need to pay more attention to the returning foreign fighter phenomenon.
A few hundred Southeast Asians have gone to fight with ISIS. The question is, once they come back, what are they going to do? Are they going to come back disillusioned and go back to their civilian life? Or are they going to come back imbibed with the extremist ideology of ISIS and, motivated by such an ideology, cause destruction and mayhem and try to bring ISIS vision of a Southeast Asian province to fruition?
Some argue that Singapore is also in a good position to take a leading role in helping ASEAN agencies fight regional terror.
Governments at this time must act. Singapore is a very small country, but Singapore is a mini superpower when it comes to intelligence and security. So Singapore should play a very decisive role in influencing and shaping and providing that critical guidance to the entire region.
Singapore has already called for countries to band together to thwart the group's access to global funds.
There is an international financing network which you must try to strangle and choke to cut off the flow of funds. The overall point is, yes, they are more coordinated. The external arm of ISIS has already said that they are formed, and this resulted in attacks in France. Since ISIS has become more coordinated, we also must be more coordinated.
At the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting on 25th May, a joint declaration was signed in Laos, laying out the common commitment and goals for defence cooperation and regional security. The agreement underscored the region's resolve to combat the threat of terrorism and to prevent it from gaining a foothold in Southeast Asia.
From my point of view, Singapore shared that we could do more in terms of information sharing and intelligence, that we had to also share resources as well as conduct joint operations where we can.
One such joint operation involving ASEAN nations and 8 other countries was recently held. For 11 days, the military teams displayed their assault and rescue capabilities aimed at showcasing their ability to maintain peace and stability in the ASEAN region. Amidst this heightened climate of terror, Singapore has reviewed its security plans. The Home Affairs Ministry mapped out 3 key areas to enhance its counter-terrorism efforts. First, the protection of key infrastructure and other installations will be improved, and this includes enhancing the country's security camera network. Second, it will upgrade its security response capabilities to deal quickly and effectively with any armed attack. The Singapore Police Force rolled out its new emergency response team. The group is made up of specially trained officers who are better equipped and armed with machine guns to deal with terrorist attacks. The Singapore Armed Forces will also train more units to take on a wider role in security tasks. Its Special Operations Task Force will have the capabilities of responding even faster when activated. the means to neutralize armed attackers and even hostage rescue. And third, it plans to strengthen the community's response through a new national program called SG Secure. The new SG Secure movement is an extension of the existing community engagement program. Activities will be launched to help people develop a sense of community vigilance, cohesion, and resilience. At the same time, it will try to inoculate Singaporeans against self-radicalization. At the fundamental level, Home Affairs Minister K. Shanmugam said there remains a need to protect Singapore's racial and religious harmony.
We have to make it clear that our fight is against extremism and violence and not against any particular religion. And we have to stay united instead of being divided. Take a collective stand against those who threaten our harmony and way of life, and doing all we can to protect the multiracial, multireligious soul of Singapore.
Community efforts have also been roped in to help soft targets like shopping malls, hotels, and entertainment places stay on their guard. The Safety and Security Watch Group is one such effort tackling this. While hotels like Shangri-La take a calibrated approach to security, such measures are not universal. Adding to the problem is the manpower crunch in the security business, so some companies are unwilling to invest in training beyond what is minimally required. But the Singapore Work Development Agency, which offers training courses for security guards, says more than 18,000 have since gone back to school to learn how to deal with potential terror threats.
You gave them the various scenarios, allowed them to things like, abandoned vehicle. When people abandon vehicle and then start running in our Singapore weather, if a person wear jacket, sometimes you find that this person is a very small build, small size, that we say oversized clothing, or sometimes baggy, so that they hide. They could be hiding weapon or could be hiding explosives.
An area that may take much longer to achieve is the government's plan to review measures to beef up building security in Singapore. While newer buildings such as the Sports Hub have been designed from scratch to integrate security and aesthetics, not so for older ones. The Home Affairs Ministry has published a set of security guidelines for owners to consider, such as installing blast-resistant pillars and shatterproof glass. They're not mandatory, so there have been calls for the Building and Construction Authority to set stricter codes. News about the beefed-up security on the physical landscape is welcome and timely.
But some analysts worry that the emerging threat from the cyber world may be harder to tackle. It's estimated that up to 90% of terrorist activity takes place online. So they argue that more needs to be done to study social media trends and data analytics.
Hazy skies blanketed most of Southeast Asia last year. In fact, 2015 has been recorded as having one of the worst and most prolonged periods of haze. Across the region, haze readings soared, sometimes to hazardous levels. Schools closed, economies struggled. It was months before clear skies finally returned.
Welcome to ASEAN Spotlight. In this segment, we explore the effects of last year's haze on Singapore, what was done to help the people and the economy, and is there anything that can be done to effectively prevent it from happening again.
In Singapore, the first transboundary haze was recorded as early as 1972. But over the years, its severity and frequency has only increased. Each year, the agriculture season in Indonesia starts when farmers clear tracts of forested lands using the slash and burn method. And the practice has only intensified as large-scale burning is carried out to prepare land for planting commercial crops such as palm oil. The effects of the haze were felt on many levels in the ASEAN countries. In Singapore, numerous outdoor events were cancelled or postponed. Businesses were lost and tourist arrivals fell. More than 77,000 visits were made to clinics across the island by people seeking treatment for haze-related conditions. But amidst the gloom, bright spots emerged. Face masks were given to the needy and elderly. We Care packs containing biscuits, instant noodles and canned food also distributed. For years, ASEAN has played a major part in trying to resolve the haze problem. At the 18th ASEAN Sub-Regional Ministerial Steering Committee on Transboundary Haze Pollution this year, it was agreed that a study would be done to look into the economic, health and social impact of last year's haze on the region. This would help countries develop baseline data to better understand the impact of the recurring problem.
It is the first time we are doing this, and of course countries have their own constraints about how and when national data can or cannot be collated. Therefore, ASEAN Secretariat has been tasked to coordinate this. We have not given ourselves a timeline, but I foresee that within a year we'll have something substantive.
Besides this, jump-starting the ASEAN haze monitoring system was also identified as crucial in tackling the haze. The system was developed in Singapore in 2012 to monitor hotspots and identify companies engaging in irresponsible land clearing practices. No country has provided any concession maps, so authorities use maps provided by non-governmental organizations and companies which put up maps of their concessions. It's an area Mr. Masago says needs to be worked on. At the same meeting, Indonesia's head of the Peatland Restoration Agency is confident that last year's haze will not rear its ugly head again.
I can say right now, I believe so, zero chance. So what Indonesia will see and our neighboring countries will totally be different from last year. There will be hotspots, yes, I cannot deny. I cannot guarantee that there won't be fires, but the scale of the fire that create haze will dramatically be less.
The agency, set up in January this year, aims to restore about 2.2 million hectares of peatland that were damaged by fires. It's also urging companies to do their part by restoring the land. At the height of the haze, the Singapore Environment Council took the unprecedented step of asking major retailers to declare that they did not sell products from alleged haze culprits, and also got supermarkets to agree to pull such products off their shelves.
This is not a one-off exercise. It's not a 3-month campaign, it's a sustained effort. So we need to get more people on board. We need to continue to push through the message about green consumerism. And the point that we have been pushing at SEC is that the environment is every individual's responsibility.
During the haze, the Breathe What We Buy campaign was launched. The Ground Up initiative was the brainchild of conservation group WWF Singapore, Singapore Institute of International Affairs, and the People's Movement to Stop Haze, better known as PM Haze. Volunteers handed out masks and collected some 13,000 pledges from the public to support companies that go haze-free. They also staged events like public forums and Singapore's first exhibition on haze. PM Haze is now in the process of coming up with a haze-free shopping guide so consumers know how to pick out items made from sustainable palm oil, pulp and paper.
Right now, we want to start with cooking oil. Cooking oil is the most immediate palm oil products that we come into contact every day. You go to hawker center, you order anything. If it's oil, then it probably contains palm oil. Right now, there's actually no alternative in supermarkets.
The SEC is doing its part too, having already awarded its green label to over 3,000 products here. Now, for the first time, it is certifying palm oil-based products.
Palm oil can be found in a lot of the common food products, margarine, biscuits, chocolates. So we are ready and we encourage companies to come forward to have their products certified.
The new category has been developed with input from palm oil certification body, the Round Table on Sustainable Palm Oil, or RSPO. But as some 80% of global palm oil remains uncertified, challenges lie ahead. Major palm oil players such as Wilmar and Cargill say they have initiatives in place to ensure a traceable supply chain. So experts suggest that the haze problem could be more effectively tackled by better regulating smaller-scale oil palm plantations. The group at PM Haze feels that while ground-up initiatives are small in scale, they have much to offer, especially if those from ASEAN nations joined hands with a united goal.
They said that this haze problem has been a source of division among the ASEAN countries, when actually it should be a source of unity, because this is a problem that we all face, and we hope that if we start here in Singapore, our neighboring countries will also be encouraged to do more in their own countries.
Yihan and his team have since travelled to peatland areas in both Indonesia and Malaysia to investigate more about the causes, impacts and solutions to the haze problem. The group is planning an educational trip for people in Singapore so they can learn and hopefully have a better understanding of the many issues surrounding peat and its role in how haze is formed. Southeast Asia looks set to gain from the economic benefits of a regional grouping with the setting up of the ASEAN Economic Community in December 2015. Among the initiatives that would support such growth is the Open Skies Agreement that would allow carriers from all 10 member nations to fly freely within the region. The agreement that began in January 2016 is known as the ASEAN Single Aviation Market, or SAM, and is the region's major aviation policy. SAM would fully liberalize air travel and supersede existing air services agreements among member states, and could also have the potential to attract China, Japan, and India to join in. This initiative, powered by a rising middle class in Southeast Asia, is strengthening in- and outbound travel throughout the region.
Being a regional aviation hub, Singapore can tap the greater opportunities brought about by increased trade and tourism. This is a result of closer cooperation in the aviation sector. The emergence and expansion of low-cost carriers provides travel access to a broader population segment with relatively modest levels of income per capita, a significant market within ASEAN.
LCCs provide about 60% of seat capacity within Southeast Asia. Between 2004 and 2014, LCCs increased their seats 8 times, from 25 million seats to 200 million seats. Budget airline Jetstar Asia, which uses Singapore as a base, is fully committed to increasing flights within the region. Liberalization in the aviation sector has helped the carrier expand inbound traffic to Changi Airport.
How does inbound travel benefit from Open Skies? We have shown it. We have shown it by increasing frequencies in markets like Cambodia. Coincidentally, we fly in 8 out of the 10 ASEAN countries, with the exception of Brunei and Laos. In all the markets where we have a presence, we have increased frequencies progressively over the last 12 years. In the last 12 months, we've added frequencies from Cambodia to Singapore. We've added frequencies from Yangon to Singapore and Indonesia to Singapore.
Low-cost carriers Scoot and Tiger Air are working together to expand their operations in the region. Parent company Singapore Airlines brought the two carriers under a single holding company to achieve closer cooperation and integration between Scoot, launched in 2012, and Tiger Air, which was started almost a decade earlier in 2003.
The two airlines now coming together as one, we no longer just have to rely on point-to-point travel to drive future growth. The potential for connecting travel becomes much greater. From the passengers' perspective, we believe the synergies will allow us to expand our network at an even faster pace, grow to even more to new destinations.
Indeed, the long-term growth potential for the aviation sector in the region is huge. Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia and India collectively account for more than half of global LCC growth, according to data presented by Amadeus in 2013. While the Open Skies Agreement might pave the way for more opportunities in the aviation sector, there will be challenges, says aviation analyst Brendan Sobey.
Southeast Asia overall, a lot of the growth, the fastest growth has already been achieved because the market has developed significantly in the last 12 or so years since the dawn of the LCCs in Singapore and in Southeast Asia. Since then, the growth has slowed down a bit overall, and the growth by LCCs in particular have slowed down as the market it has matured slightly.
With tough competition in the LCC market, partnerships are therefore critical for growth. In May 2016, such a collaboration called the Value Alliance was formed. 8 low-cost carriers, including Scoot and Tiger Air, will allow passengers to book flights through each partner website and through a single booking, create itineraries across the region.
We can rely on each other's distribution strengths in our home market. In the Philippines, we are less well known, but Cebu Pacific, the well-known brand name, and so we can rely on them.
Slower growth aside, costs, especially operational expenses, could also pose another challenge, especially for budget airlines where passengers are more price sensitive. Other hurdles in the region, from infrastructure to operational efficiencies, also need to be overcome for a clearer runway for airlines.
Though traffic rights have been liberalized, there's still airport congestion across some of the major metros in ASEAN and even some of the secondary points as well, Bali included, with a single runway operation. In markets like this, there has to be more easing of slots to airlines to enable them to grow.
While challenges abound, one positive for budget airlines operating out of Singapore is the fact that their home base, Changi, is a regional aviation hub, which saw close to 55.5 million passengers passing through the airport between January and December last year. This is 1.3 million more than the year before, and that is despite a slower economic growth in recent times that has impacted other airports in the region.